Salutations, Legion of Doom. Welcome to Podcast of the Storm. We're so awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all around nerds can be talking debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello and good evening, and I apologize that we didn't do this yesterday. I ran out of my sleep meds like 3 days ago. I assumed I'd be able to go without them for a couple days. I was wrong, and I was not compass mentis enough to do this yesterday, so we had to move it a day.
And I'm your host, last time I want to be the brains for pop culture. How's everyone doing tonight?
Still tired, less tired than I was yesterday.
I don't think you ever mentioned to me that you took sleep meds.
Have I not?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm on anitriptyline for sleep.
Okay, I'm going to pretend I know what that is.
It's a sleep med. Long story short. And I ran out of it a couple days ago. Like I said, I foolishly assumed that I might be able to go a couple days without it completely fucking me over. I was mistaken.
Right. Okay. So we're more or less both playing catch up and just some stuff that has warranted attention.
Mm-hmm.
But it was kind of a slow week, not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, there was enough stupid shit in Dunbar Hills for me to do my portion of the job. And Brainstormer did find a positive thing, so success.
It's kind of a lot harder than you think. It's easy to find stupid, but it's a lot harder to find.
Which is in and of itself an indictment of the modern pop culture landscape, because stupid should not be this easy to find, and positivity should not be this hard to find either. But we live in the world we live in. As much as Brainstormer and I are working on fixing it
Anyway,
in our own ways.
okay. So this is from the Online Hate Prevention Institute. .org.au. Gamergate Returns Collective Shout Edition. It's published August 9th, 2025. So I want full context being that Don here has more experience with Gamergate than I because, well, he's older than I am.
Uh-huh.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. You are very much not wrong.
Um,
I feel at this point like I should go into like an Elrond speech from Lord of the Rings. I was there the day the strength of the game Swordos failed, etc. and so on. But yes, I was just coming out of college right around the time that um Gamergate got going, and I was kind of lurking in the background and supporting Gamergate all through its, peak from like 2013 to 2015 thereabouts. And then of course I was more directly involved in Comicsgate when that happened, and so on and so on and so forth. Because the all-pervasive problem of feminists trying to institutionally capture every IP under the sun and inculcate it with a bunch of post-Frankfurt School deconstructionalist nonsense, because my themes and my authorial intent should matter more than in-universe logic or characterization or world building. Darp. Yeah. But to be fair, I am not the only one in whom Gamergate lives rent-free, because it's been it's been slightly more than a decade. It's been about a dozen years, and they still, to their credit, they still correctly attribute a lot of shit to Gamergate or Gamergate-like movements, because feminism keeps trying to ideologically and institutionally capture every IP, and the people who have a vested interest in that IP continue to oppose them doing so. It's kind of funny to me that Atheism Plus completely fucking fractured the atheism community, but the geeks, the nerds, we were the ones who held out the most stridently against the feminist ideological and moral co-opting. Anyway, que sera, moving forward.
Okay. I am still a little sick. It's mainly just the cough, really, at this point. So if I'm like quiet or I've muted myself, it's probably because I'm having a coughing fit. Collective Shout is a registered Australian charity that campaigns against the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls. Okay, that's the latter part. Well, no, actually,
They're applying it to fictional characters instead of actual people, even though actual people are currently getting fucking human trafficked and shit. So I will push back against their priorities, because you're too busy focusing on the feminist ideological conformity of fictional characters instead of doing anything about the actual people getting actually human trafficked. Never mind that several of those people are also men and boys, and you don't give half a fuck, but, you know, you can't expect a feminist to be an egalitarian for 5 fucking minutes. Moving on.
In July, Collective Shout announced that they had found about 500 games on popular games platforms like Steam and itch.io, which featured child exploitation, rage, and/or hard R and incest.
As long as those characters are fictional and we're not based on any actual real children, I don't give a fuck. The harm principle was not violated, and you should not give a shit about it on that basis. In fact, and I've made this clear on many other occasions, in particular that one Vice hit piece on manga, I would much rather a world in which people who were that way inclined self-medicated by jerking it to fictional characters than ever actually harm any real children. So there. A world in which no person who has that particular monkey on their back actually harms children is better than one in which any actual child gets harmed. So there. I'd much rather they do it to fictional characters and therefore don't harm anyone than they do it to anyone who's ever been a real human. Moving on.
Alright, this is not a case of adult content. Many of the games were so offensive to common standards of decency in Australia that they would likely be refused classification, making their sale a criminal offense. Jesus Christ. And I thought Australia was full of jackasses.
Well, they are. The old school meme is something to keep in mind about Australia. They are descended from a bunch of criminals, but they are also descended from their jailers. So there's that. Yeah, but again, I don't see why you people are hyperfixating on artistic expressions of fictional characters instead of the actual people who get actually human trafficked. And let's not even talk about how many of those third world how many of those people who commit human trafficking are from the third world but get away with it because they're Muslims? Derp. And let's also not forget that, some of those people getting human trafficked, a quite significant portion of them, in fact, are men and boys, and no one gives half a fuck. But as usual, something affects all humans, women most affected. Something affects primarily men, women most affected. And something that even affects real women, and yet somehow women most affected. Derp. Moving on.
Alright, having previously referred a game to the classification board and had its sale in Australia deemed illegal, with the new information of a much wider and systemic problem, Collective Shout published an open letter to payment processing companies, including MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, and other payment processing companies. Card networks and banks have rules prohibiting the use of their device services for certain kinds of status transactions. Collective Shout argued these games fell within the prohibited categories and called on the payment processors to cease providing services to games platforms until they stopped selling games that involve child exploitation, hard R, or incest.
Again, if they're fictional characters who were never based on any real people, I don't care. I will make an exception for revenge porn or anything that bases its fictional characters on real people. Those people should, belong underneath in the unmarked grave underneath the jail, along with all the other people who uncritically indulge in that kind of behavior. But revenge porn and or characters being based on real people notwithstanding, if they're fictional characters, i.e., no John Stuart Mill harm principle violation occurring, I don't care, and I'm suspicious of anyone who is more upset by the idea of women and children being harmed in the abstract than focusing on the real people who actually do get really harmed in the real world of, material reality. So, yeah, I call bullshit. I call bullshit for exactly the same reason with the intersectional feminist types, or in this case, the, I guess, traditional third wave feminist types, because they're, of course, non-intersectionalists. I'm just as suspicious of the feminist moralistic harridans as I am of the old school traditionalist Helen Lovejoy types. If your argument is people can express things in art because won't somebody please think of the women, children, and or minorities, then you can get fucked. Unless and until you can demonstrate actual harm principle violation, in which case, then I will entertain you. But we live in a world where people actually get human trafficked on a regular basis, and no one gives half a fuck. But fictional characters getting buggered in theory in video games, and everyone loses their fucking minds. Moving on.
Alright, payment platforms responded and called on platforms to remove content that breaches the payment platform terms of service. Games platforms removed thousands of games in response. Misinformation spread, claiming that removals were a result of a women's group seeking to censor all form of adult content, leading to anger over censorship, and more generally at women interfering in what some men think of as their space. Some gamers responded by launching volumetric attacks targeting Collective Shout, its staff, and its directors with a misogynistic harassment campaign.
Sweetheart, they're not harassing them because they're women. They're harassing them because they're ideologically more motivated feminists who are more concerned with the way people choose to entertain themselves in the form of art and gameplay than they are actual human traffickers. That's not hating women. That's not misogyny. That's hating moralistic authoritarian cunts for being moralistic authoritarian cunts. And I am consistent in this. I don't care if it's Helen Lovejoy going, "Won't somebody please think of the children?" or if it's Anita Sarkeesian going, "Won't somebody please think of the women and minorities?" If you want to ban art in which no one is actually being harmed on the basis of some abstract moral victimhood, you can go fuck yourself. Moving on.
The Online Hate Prevention Institute has, in the past, worked with Collective Shout on work tackling misogyny. We reach out to offer support and find out more. As a result, we have reviewed a lot of the abuse they have received, both the public content and through private messages, and assist them and the social media companies responding to the death threats, threats of hard R, threats of doxing to facilitate others carrying out real-world violence. These are serious issues in need of strong response. The remainder of this article provides further details and responses to questions we have put to Collective Shout.
I'm gonna need to see actual evidence of harassment before I'm willing to allow for harassment, because movements like this have a terrible tendency of framing any criticism at all as harassment just because they think they should be morally sacrosanct. And yeah, no. Also, death threats, quote unquote, unless they can be demonstrated to be somehow actionable, i.e., if someone actually goes ahead and tries to realize those threats in reality, don't particularly matter. On the internet, that's just banter, my darlings. Unless and until you can demonstrate someone actually like swatting you or doxing you or harassing you, you're gonna have to miss me with that shit. Moving on.
Yep. All right. About Collective Shout. Collective Shout is registered Australian charity in good standing. They are a few years older than OHPI, having started back in 2009 and describe themselves as a grassroots campaigns movement, a collective shout against the objectification of women and the sexualization of girls in media, advertising, and pop culture. Okay, see, that I wouldn't be opposed to, because there is kind of an issue there, to be fair.
If what you're dealing with is actually like exploiting actual people, then yes, I'm fine with that. But when it's fictional characters and not actually violating the harm principle, you can miss me with that shit. Especially because sexualization is frequently just portraying characters as attractive. Also, and at risk of being the token MRA, notice how no one gives a shit when it's boys and men being sexualized or objectified. It's only because, oh, women might be most affected by this that these people give a shit. And I'm sorry, but I don't give a shit about your principles if your principles can change at the drop of a hat based on who is being affected by shit. Let alone if they are actually being if they are actually being affected by said shit. Which is the other thing. They don't actually care about people being exploited in reality, like in the porn industry or in the sex work industry or in the human trafficking fucking industry. They are more concerned with how women are portrayed in fictional media than they are actual women getting actually exploited. And so even if I were inclined to pull the women worsting card, you're going to have to prioritize the people actually being harmed in actual reality more than you prioritize the way people are portrayed in art before I can take you in any way seriously.
Moving on?
Yep, moving on.
Okay. Just kind of stopped in the middle of that. Which seeks to bring about cultural change to uphold the value of women and girls.
And again, at risk of being the token MRA, notice that men and boys never came into that calculation anywhere. men and boys can get sexualized and objectified all through every form of media, and if you don't let women indulge in it, you're actually being misogynist. But women and girls are portrayed as being attractive occasionally, gaff, shock horror, and that is some kind of moral affront against all womankind. Piss off. Moving on.
About Collective Shout's campaign on July 14th, an open letter from Collective Shout to payment platforms like Visa and MasterCard asked participants to cease processing payments on gaming platforms which host hard R, incest, and child sexual abuse themed games. To be fair, those are not the games I would play like really ever. So
yeah, and no one is asking anyone to play them. That's the thing. Even if these games exist, and even if they could be demonstrated to be somehow harmful, no one is encouraging anyone to play them other than the people who would play them anyway. But again, very often, we're not talking about like revenge porn games or anything like that, or anything that was based on a real, human model. We're talking about entirely fictional characters being portrayed in ways that these people find objectionable in the abstract. And I'm sorry, but no, I don't give a shit about your abstract moral woo if it's not actually violating something resembling John Stuart Mill's harm principle. Again, I already explained this once, but I will explain it again for clarity's sake. I will make an exception for revenge porn, and I will make an exception for anything that ever used a actual human model for that kind of shit. But I will not make an exception for entirely fictional characters being portrayed in any way in particular. Especially not when y'all don't care if it's a male character getting buggered against his will. Or, frankly, and this is the other thing that you're ignoring, some women do have, like, bodice stripper fantasies or rape fantasies. They like the idea of being taken or dominated. And yet you don't care about the opinions of those women either. So, again, you're going to have to miss me with this. We speak for all womankind when you don't even speak for the women or even try to speak for the women that actually like that shit, of which there are quite a few.
There is a thing, Dalton, you wouldn't know about it because you don't use TikTok, obviously. There's a thing called Book Talk Girls. Don't look it up, but that's a whole sub thing.
Yeah. While we're seeing as you did bring it up, are we gonna talk about all the romantasy books where
Let's start romance, I think they call it.
Yeah, the subgenre of romantasy where the poor put upon virginal woman end up being seduced by the 6'6" archdemon or other monster creature. Like,
it's weird. It's weird that I think about it, but honestly, women are a lot more freakier. Well, actually, you know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna finish that sentence. I feel like
I will finish it for you because I've actually done studies on this. When they've actually done studies about what men and women are attracted to when they look at porn, and as it turns out, men are attracted to the things you would think they would be attracted to, i.e., men are attracted to attractive women. Girls and women apparently, according to studies that they've actually done on this, they can get turned on by the idea of, or by the images of monkeys going at it with each other.
Okay, so never mind. I do send my statement that women are a lot more freakier than guys.
Yeah, or at least they can be. Not saying there are no freaky guys out there, and not saying every woman ever,
I will
but
actually say this is a quote. I don't remember who said it originally, but guys are only as freaky as they're allowed to be.
yep. And predictably, given that we let women get away with just about everything and anything, they are allowed to go a lot freakier than guys because we basically say women can do whatever they want in all circumstances. And frequently, the people who have the most problem with the sexual fetishes or romantic fetishes of some women are other women. Like guys don't tend to get annoyed by women's exotic fetishes. Very often, what happens is prudish women will shame other women for having their tendencies or fetishes or whatever the fuck. And yet somehow men usually wind up getting blamed for this shit.
You done?
Moving on.
Okay. One of the games Collective Shout used an example was reviewed by. Hold on. Sorry, my mouse was being weird there for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One of the games Collective Shout used as an example was reviewed by the Australian Classification Board and then refused classification, making it illegal in Australia due to its extreme content. The letter notes how that game and others were found on the gaming platforms Steam and ick.io. Collective Shout's research found hundreds of games on the platforms that featured hard R, sexual torture, and incest, and noted that many of them would have breached Australian classification laws. In response, Steam and ick.io have now acted to remove thousands of games.
Okay, you moralistic authoritarian Australian cunts. You can ban things based on Australian law in Australia. You can't ban them on the rest of the internet. You can't hold people to an Australian legal standard when they're not in Australia. You crazy vindictive harpies. Even assuming that I thought that these Australian fucking blasphemy laws, which is essentially what they are, even if I thought these Australian blasphemy laws were reasonable in and of themselves, which I don't, they're passed in Australia and they're presumably passed in something resembling a democratic structure. So at least with regards to, the Australian people have consented to this shit, that's fine. But you can't enforce Australian legal standards in places other than Australia, my darlings. Steam isn't headquartered in Australia. It's not obliged to abide by Australian blasphemy laws.
They threaten money, so they have to.
Well, but and that's the other thing. Are we honestly gonna pretend like feminists are these put upon rebels if they can morally blackmail entire fucking credit card companies and those credit card companies just fold? Like this is the thing. Feminists and social justice types in general love seeing themselves as the virtuous fucking freedom fighters and anarchists and shit, but they can go to people like the UN, like Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn did, and whine in the presence of the UN that people are being mean to them online. Or Collective Shout can go to fucking MasterCard and Visa and just straight up be like, we don't morally approve of these, and we don't think you should either, so you need to ban this sick filth. Yeah, no, you can go fuck yourself. You are not the rebels. You are not the freedom fighters. You are the kinds of people who can morally blackmail one of the most financially successful companies on the planet and get your way every single fucking time. Moving on.
You do realize we live like in a fucked up world, right?
I am aware of this. I'm just pointing it out to all the feminists out there. Y'all think you're the rebels, but you can morally blackmail a literal credit card, several credit card companies and get your way all the time. Meanwhile, men and non-feminists can't so much as want their IPs to be respected without being treated like fucking terrorists. Remember the 2019's Joker is gonna be a terrorist sympathetic incel movie thing? So we can't get movies to cater to us, but feminists can go, hey, extremely rich and powerful credit card company, you should let us morally blackmail you, and if you don't, we'll shame you into it. Derp.
It's what it is, man. I stopped caring, to be fair.
Moving on, though.
In the letter, Collective Shot said many of these games would breach Australian classification laws. Okay, then have them banned there. Like you have
Yeah.
servers there. So
Yeah, like I said, you can enforce Australian blasphemy laws in Australia. You can't fucking do it for the rest of the fucking free world, my dudes. Like, and the idea that they don't even realize how entitled they're being is what pisses me off.
moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Okay. Where was I? Oh, okay. This means they're so extreme they wouldn't qualify for restricted R plus 18 or restricted X plus 18 or 18 plus. Sorry. Rating from the Australian Classification Board, but would instead be rated refused classification RC. R18 plus materials contain.
Yeah,
hold on.
but yeah, go ahead.
Materials contain content that may be offensive to sections of the adult community, while X18 plus materials contain sexually explicit activity, including actual sexual intercourse or other sexual activity between consenting adults.
Okay, one, people are not obliged to give a shit about your offense. And even insofar as you can fucking write that into Australian law some fucking how, people outside of Australia don't have to give a fuck about Australian fucking blasphemy laws, my darlings. Like, I have to give a shit about Australian blasphemy laws if I'm ever in Australia, but I'm not in Australia, you see. So trying to use the Australian legal system as a reason why Steam, an American company, should not be allowed to have these on their servers is completely bullshit. And I would say the same thing if something were for some reason banned in American law and somebody was trying to get like a Chinese company to ban it on that basis. Like, you guys do understand the premise that people only have to give a shit about your laws insofar as they're subject to your laws, and they're only subject to your laws if they're in your jurisdiction. This should be obvious, but you're acting as though it being banned in Australia is, one, a moral argument, which it isn't by itself, and two, even insofar as it were a legal argument, it would apply only to companies headquartered or doing the primary amount of their business in Australia. And Steam is neither of those things. It is an American company that does business all over the fucking world, and so Australia can ban it if it feels like it, but people outside of the jurisdiction of Australia have no obligation to give a fuck about what Australia thinks. And frankly, I would argue that you shouldn't make laws based on offense to begin with, but again, they acquiesced to it in Australia, so I guess in Australia they are allowed to. But by that same token, I, as a non-Australian person, do not have any obligation, moral or legal, to give a fuck about what Australia thinks, unless and until the day I want to do business in Australia. Moving on.
All right. The Australian Classification Board explains refused classification refers to films, computer games, and publications that cannot be sold, hired, and advertised or legally imported in Australia. Material classified as RC contains content that is outside generally accepted community standards and exceeds what can be included in the R18 plus and X18 plus ratings. Okay, see, that sounds really like a slippery slope. That sounds almost incredibly vague, to be false.
Yeah, no, it is horrible, especially when you consider again that these games are applying this standard not to real people, for which there's actual, logic for that, but to fictional characters. So you're not even allowed to artistically draw a fictional character in any of these situations without Australia fucking banning your ass. But again, as a non-Australian, I will remind Australia and any Australian citizens, we don't have to give a damn about what Australia thinks unless and until we want to do business in Australia. And even then, you are allowed to ban things, Australia, within your own borders. You are not allowed to ban them in the rest of the world. Like, you are permitted to make these fucked up laws and enforce these fucked up laws in your own fucking civilization. You're not allowed to project that shit onto every other civilization on the motherfucking planet. You can ban it in Australia if you're Australian. You can't ban it in fucking America on the basis that Australia doesn't like it. You don't have to let it be sold in Australia if you don't want to, and that's fine. But you can't go to an American company and go, well, our Australian laws say you shouldn't be allowed to do this, so you can't do this. To which Steam should be able to respond, we're an American company, get fucked. But, that would be an insane world, and we don't live in one of those, apparently. Moving on.
Okay. The letter talks about games that involve violent sexual torture of women and children, including incest-related abuse involving family members, which is likely to be given a refused classification rating by the Australian Classification Board.
And if that applied to just real people being really exploited, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But you're applying it to fictional characters who have no basis in reality, and there's where I have an issue with it. You're applying it to drawings when you should be restricting this to real people being really harmed. So even if I were willing to entertain your standards, Australia, I have moral objections to your standards on the basis that I don't think these standards should be applied to fictional characters or fictional scenarios. Again, I make exceptions for like revenge porn or porn that uses, real models, but barring that, if it's a fictional character in a fictional situation, not being actually harmed by the John Stuart Mill harm principle, I don't give a fuck, and I'm not obliged to. Moving on.
So Q&A, OHPI, can you give us an idea of what sorts of games would fall within the refused classification rating? Collector Shout, see Caroline Allison's tweet with information on how games are classified in Australia. I'm not clicking that because they also have it here. Australian guidelines for classifications of computer games. Guidelines use the following hierarchy of impact: very mild, G, mild PG, moderate, M, strong MA 15 plus, high R 18 plus, very high RC. Pure games that exceed the R18 plus classification category will be refused classification and illegal to be sold in Australia. The 6 classifiable elements in a game are themes, violence, sex, language, drug use, nudity. Okay, that... I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, again, one, if you're applying that to real people being really harmed, that's fine. You're choosing to apply it to fictional characters, though, and that's where I draw the line. And two, even insofar as I was willing to entertain that shit, you're allowed to do it in Australia. You're not allowed to demand everyone that's not in Australia be forced to abide by your standards, Australia. Like you are allowed to make these laws in your own jurisdiction if you absolutely must, but no one outside of that jurisdiction is obliged to give a shit. And Steam is a fucking American company, so they are obliged to give a shit about American laws with regards to this. They are not obliged to give a shit about what Australia thinks. Moving on.
Okay. Computer games will be refused classification if they include or contain any of the following: crime or violence, detailed instruction or promotion in matters of crime or violence, the promotion or provision of instruction in pedophilia, pedophile activity, descriptions or depictions of child sexual abuse, or any other exploitive or offensive descriptions or depictions involving a person who is or appears to be a child under 18 years old. Okay, well, Japan's going to have a problem with that, I'm sure.
Well, yes, but also, again, reminding everyone, for clarity's sake, they're applying this standard to fictional characters, not just to real people. I have no problem applying that standard to real people, because real people are actually being harmed, and anyone who produces that shit should be in the unmarked grave underneath the jail. But when it's fictional characters in fictional situations, you are well and truly beyond my capacity to give a shit at that point. And even if I were obliged to give a shit, assuming I were an Australian citizen, you're only allowed to enforce that rule, Australia, within your own fucking borders. And presumably with any companies that operate in your own fucking borders. But Steam is an American company, and they have business all over, and they do business with people all over the fucking world. So, no, piss off. And you certainly shouldn't be able to take Australian legal standards and whine at an American credit card company and enforce your will that way. And the fact that you're allowed to get away with that shit is you being a bunch of entitled cunts. And I'm sick of this bullshit. I'm sick of this bullshit where we, non-feminists and men can't so much as be upset when bad movies are made that demonize and vilify us, but you, feminists from fucking Australia of all places, can whine at an American credit card company and get entire businesses banned, even when those businesses aren't Australian and have nothing to do with Australia. Moving on.
All right. Depictions of violence with a very high degree of impact, which are excessively frequent, prolonged, detailed, or repetitive, cruelty or realistic violence, which are very detailed and which have a very high impact, actual sexual violence, implied sexual violence related to incentives and rewards.
Again, sure, if you're applying this to real people, then by all means, anyone who violates this shit should be in the unmarked grave underneath the jail. But if you're applying it to fictional characters in fictional situations, then no, I don't give a fuck. And furthermore, even if I did give a fuck, you are allowed, Australia, to make these fucked up laws in your own borders, or applying to companies that do business in your own borders. You can't force an American company, an American credit card company at that, to stop doing business with another American company on the basis that the Australian legal code finds it objectionable. Do you not even remotely see how fucking entitled that is of you to assume that you, a group of Australian feminists, should be allowed to moralistically shame an American credit card company into stop doing business with another American company on the basis of Australian legal codes? Moving on.
Sex, depictions of actual sexual activity are not permitted. Depictions of simulated sexual activity that are explicit and realistic are not. Jesus fucking Christ. Depictions of practices such as okay, that one I could see fine. Depictions of practices such as bestiality, gratuitous, exploitative, or offensive depictions of activity accompanied by fetishes or practices which are offensive or abhorrent.
Who decides what offensive and abhorrent mean exactly?
Okay, so they're king shaming. Well, okay.
Well, yes, but also that's not even a harm-oriented position. That's, we find it icky. And again,
that's just so fucking stupid and just immature.
yeah, and I'd like to point out, again for the record, that half of those things that Brainstormer just read out are not the things themselves. It is simply, and I quote, depictions of X, Y, or Z, which means that it doesn't even have to be a real example of the thing. It just has to be a simulacrum or a depiction of a thing, and Australia's fucking gonna ban you. And even then, I'd at least be obliged to give a shit about that if I were in Australia. But you can't project Australian law onto everywhere except Australia, damn it. Like, you're allowed to enforce your laws within your own borders or within your own companies, but you're not allowed to enforce them on everyone the fuck else. Australia, damn it. Moving on.
All right. OHPI. Who decided which games would be removed? Did you just provide a list of games that were of concern to Steam and itch.io, and they just blanket removed them all, or have the companies reviewed the offering themselves, made a decision of what they will remove? We called on payment processors to stop processing payments on gaming platforms like Steam and itch.io that host hard R, incest, and child abuse themed games. While we noted we had found almost 500 games tagged with hard R or incest, we did not determine what games were removed, and we're not privy to those discussions.
MasterCard and Visa are American companies. They should have just told you to kick rocks on the basis that you're a bunch of whiny Australians trying to enforce Australian legal codes onto American companies. But they didn't. They acquiesced to your demands, even though they are an American company and the company to which you were alerting them was also an American company. But they acquiesce to you, and then you have the nerve to whine when people bitch at you for being a bunch of moralistic cunts. Again, the level of entitlement is infuriating here. A bunch of moralistic twats in Australia can shame a American credit card actually 2 American credit card companies into banning another American company on the basis of Australian legal codes or Australian morality. But again, I would like to point this out for the record. We, those of us who are, not feminists, can't so much as have an issue when we're actively being slighted in our own media, but Australian feminists can shame an American credit card company into banning another American company from doing business with them on the basis of Australian fucking morality and feminism.
Moving on.
Yep, moving on.
Okay. OHPI, you mentioned over email that your team had each been personally targeted with abuse, with some of the worst being threats of hard R, death threats, doxing, accusation of pedophilia, and covering for pedophiles, and deepfake porn made of you. Okay, I feel like the last 3 are excessive.
Yeah,
well, no,
deepfakes and so on. I'm on your side with, because that's actually trying to depict a real person.
Yeah, that's.
I have no problem with banning that shit. Anyone who engages in that kind of revenge porn or deepfake nonsense, they can join the rest of the pedos underneath in the unmarked grave underneath the jail. But if it's applying to fictional characters and fictional situations and no one is actually harmed, then I have an issue with it. And even then, even insofar as I would agree with you on the deepfakes and the revenge porn and shit, you're still not allowed to enforce Australian laws on non-Australian companies that deal with the rest of the fucking world. You can't ban something from the whole world because you as Australians have an issue with it. Even with regards to stuff I agree with you on, because that's not how laws work. Laws apply to the people it has jurisdiction over, not to everyone the fuck else in the universe. Moving on.
You know you're repeating yourself, right?
Yes, I know, but to be fair, they've repeated themselves like 5 times now. So it's fair game.
Alright. Sounds absolutely horrific for everyone involved, and frankly like Gamergate on steroids. It sounds overwhelming. Can you describe the 3 of the instances of cyber abuse you have experienced in more detail? Collective shout. The following are from some of our team members sharing their experiences. When I googled my email address, I found my name and photo on 4chan. My work email address was listed along with a few others taken from our website and media releases with the words hard R them underneath. One user wrote that
you do know that
there's more. I want you to have the full.
Yeah, go ahead.
One user wrote that he planned to stab me. Another shared an image of a person hanging from a noose alongside my name. One shared my photo taken from my Twitter/X profile and asked them who wanted to make a cum tribute to me. Jesus Christ.
Guys, it's not doxing if it's publicly available information. You guys do know that, right? Like, if you publicly advertise your email,
it's a work email. To be fair,
right? But if it's publicly available, like those images on Twitter are publicly available images. Any emails you link to your Twitter or your social media is publicly available information. That's not them doxing you. You've already doxed yourself. You're just upset that someone would use it in a way you don't approve of. But unfortunately, that's just not how that works. if you are stupid enough to make information about yourself publicly available, you don't then get to complain when people utilize that publicly available information. And if you post a picture on a free social media app like Twitter, you have to be aware that it's publicly available information at that point. See, this is the issue. Y'all call it doxing when people use publicly available information that you yourself made public. That's not what doxing means. Doxing is when you take people's private information that is not supposed to be publicly available and then use it against them.
Hey, Don.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even halfway through with this article, and we've already been on it for an hour.
Yeah, we should move on.
Yeah. There's another, like I said, there are 3 examples. There's 2 more, so. Another one. A man on Twitter began following me and making threats against the women on our team. In a tweet, he published a list of all the staff on our small women-only team, alongside the text, "Have fun with this list, y'all. Fight until they're dead." Using the Grok AI feature, this man asked where one team member lived. He asked Grok where I like to get a coffee. He also sent threats, including his desire to hard R and murder the women on our team, and to hard R, hog tie, and fillet us. Okay, guys. Clearly.
You do know they were probably being figurative when they said that.
To be fair, there are some nut jobs on the fucking.
There are, and if anyone actually does try to act on these, then by all means, throw every book at them. But a lot of times, people are being like figurative when they say shit like that, like the rape them comments. Like that was probably just someone being a cheeky bastard. He wasn't actually advocating that someone go out and in like an angry mob and like gang R them or something like.
Don, you okay? You know what? Now I'm not going to go there because somehow I'm being the cynical bastard in this.
I'm pointing out their ridiculously disproportionate fucking paranoia is what I'm doing.
I don't know if. Oh, okay. I will admit, I think obviously I'm not. Maybe not. It's paranoia. I'm not gonna lie. Yes. But again, like I said, there are people out there that more than likely could or would act on this shit if they wanted to.
And if they do, that is their problem, and they can go to jail as long as they feasibly want. Like, yeah, just to be clear, I'm not advocating that anyone should act on any of this shit, and anyone who does is a worthless piece of fucking shit. But by the same token, the average normal internet user who is bantering and making fun and making memes and shit is not a terrorist because they use the R word. And it doesn't count as doxing if you use publicly available information that the person intentionally made public on purpose. Oh, god damn it. It's this level of like hysterionic paranoia that it is what I'm making fun of here. I am not in any way advocating that anyone should act on this shit, and if they do, throw every book at them, and I hope someone, finds them in a misopportune moment in the jail showers afterwards. But just because some people said some things you don't like, that doesn't mean you're persecuted. It doesn't mean you're in danger. It means that you're looking at someone making fun of you, essentially, and treating it as though they're fucking terrorists. Moving on.
Okay. An email that was sent to my work email address, one of many referenced our campaign against Steam, and asked me what I was going to do when they found me IRL. Would I run and hide? Okay, that does seem more just empty threat, mind you.
Yeah, that person should be reported or whatever the fuck. But it's a bit histrionic to say you're worried about someone actually, doing something to you or your family on that basis. Maybe and playing a little bit of devil's advocate here, maybe if you don't want people to treat you like a bunch of cunts, you shouldn't be a bunch of cunts. Just throwing that out there because by the way, the people on 4chan aren't the ones who made it impossible for Steam to fucking do business with Visa and MasterCard, two of the most pervasive credit card companies on the planet, because they hosted some games that you assholes in Australia didn't like.
You done?
Yeah, moving on.
Okay. What was the initial reaction to this? Collector shouted staff members' response. My initial reaction was a sense of dread. This isn't a fair fight where a handful of women being targeted in a global campaign of misogynistic abuse by hundreds of thousands of anonymous men. There's a sense of powerlessness. Fuck off. Because it's impossible to fight back. It's barely possible to track or record all the threats. It's frightening because you don't know if someone will follow through on a threat. It only takes one.
My darling, you said someone emailed you. I'm assuming your workplace has an HR department. Why didn't you report the email? Instead of feeling a disproportional sense of dread for no reason and acting as though you're a poor put upon little victim who didn't do anything wrong, you could actually behave like a responsible adult for 5 minutes and report them to HR, at which point, if there's anything actionable in that email, the HR person could probably call the police on your behalf, considering that's kind of the whole point of why HR departments are allegedly supposed to exist. But this is the thing. Notice that her reaction was not, I'm going to report this and behave like a rational adult. It was to immediately panic and do nothing, even though she had the resources to do something about it by reporting it to HR and having HR report it to the police. Like, police do have the capacity to, like, run down email addresses and shit. If you genuinely felt threatened, the sensible thing to do is use the resources at your disposal, report it to HR, and request that HR report it to the police. If you stopped panicking for 5 minutes and behaved like a grown-up, you could have dealt with this like a sane person. Moving on.
Okay. How has this impacted you? Collector shout, a team member's response. It is completely overwhelming. Attempting to moderate comments, block, delete, report, or report to authorities takes so much time. Oh my god. It's fucking worth it to keep anyone who would actually follow through not doing that.
If you're so worried about it, then the time it takes you to follow through like a sane person and a rational adult and reporting it to the appropriate authorities shouldn't be that difficult for you. Because here's the thing, if I actually thought my life was in danger, you bet your ass I would report it to the fucking police. Because if I actually thought that my life was in danger, that's precisely what the police are fucking for. And no, I wouldn't consider it a disproportional impact on my time Because if I actually thought I was in danger, I would actually take steps to prevent myself from being in danger and would consider that a good use of my time, because if I thought that some sociopath was after me, like you apparently seem to, according to you, reporting that sociopath to the fucking police and making sure that they can't come after me is a pretty good, solid fucking use of my time, wouldn't you think? But that requires me to behave like a rational adult when I think I'm in danger, and not just immediately panic and fucking make a public pantomime about shit. Because this is the thing. You're either not actually worried and you just want the like moral credit for this shit. You just want the public sympathy vote, or you actually are worried and you're too stupid to realize that that's what the fucking police are for. In which case, you're not behaving like a rational person, and my ability to feel sympathy for you is somewhat minimized. Like, that's, again, that's what the police are for. If you don't use the police for the thing they're for, that's kind of a bit on you at that point. Moving on.
Right. Okay. It's also relentless with no end in sight. It's really difficult to set appropriate boundaries with screen time and step away or take away any time off, because the abuse doesn't stop. Every morning I wake early with a sense of dread what new disaster has happened overnight. There's also fear. I fear for my safety, for the safety of my children, for all my colleagues. I fear for our mental health. It's not easy being on the receiving end of a sustained, targeted campaign of hate. It's frustrating to see lies and misinformation being spread about our team and our work, and have no way to respond or defend. Oh my.
And yet you didn't feel any obligation to make sure you were accurately informing Visa and MasterCard when you were snitching on Steam, did you? See, this is the thing. You want all the sympathy, you want all the fucking, like, world's smallest violin music for yourself, but you don't care that you probably cost some people their fucking livelihoods because they allowed a couple games in the, thousands and millions of games that Steam deals with every day to exist in America when they're an American company and you're trying to hold them to Australian legal standards. And by the way, I'm sorry, and I'm going to sound like a dick when I say this, but to some degree, your fear is your responsibility to deal with. Your mental health is your responsibility. Your taking the time out to actually deal with this like a crime and report it to the police is to some extent your responsibility. If you know you should do these things and you don't do them, that, I'm sorry, but that does cut down on your sympathy a little bit. Same thing with the it's so hard to regulate screen time and stuff. Sure, it can be difficult, but if it's that important to you, it is your responsibility to limit your screen time if you think it is actually having a negative impact on your mental health. Also, it would be extremely helpful if you asked yourself the following question: is the fear I'm feeling a rational fear? If yes, if the answer to that question is yes, then you are obligated and it is your responsibility to take rational courses of action to deal with that rational fear. And if no, if your fear is disproportional, if your fear is histrionic, if it is irrational, then it is your responsibility to get that irrational fear under control so that you can behave like a rational adult. Either way, at least some of this is your responsibility or your fault. So you should actually be obliged to act in accordance with your stated beliefs. You shouldn't just be allowed to whine on social media and do nothing the fuck else when you claim you're worried for yourself, your family, and your fucking mental health. Policemen exist for a reason. Use them, or if you don't use them, if you would rather get social media clout than react to these threats rationally, then you don't get sympathy for not doing the thing you know you should be doing.
Hey, Don?
Yeah, moving on.
Okay. I'm also feeling a sense of hopelessness and despair. When I went to the police, I was sent away with a cybersecurity pamphlet, e-safety response that most of our reports are not actionable. Social media platforms rarely remove anything, and if they do, it's after the damage has been done. It feels like there are no real protections for women and girls online, and I worry this abuse towards us will having a chilling effect on women speaking out more generally, because they know not only what potentially awaits them, but they are also seeing, just as our abusers are, that there are no consequences for perpetrators of abuse.
Okay, let me dig through all the fear and the histrionics there for a second. You went to the police, you reported them, well done, and the police told you that the things you were reporting were not actionable. That means that you were reacting disproportionately. If you go to the police and the police tell you this isn't a crime, you're overreacting, you don't then get to shame the police for doing their fucking job and telling you to cool your fucking jets when you're being a histrionic bitch. Remember that thing I said earlier about you need to ask yourself the question of if this is a rational fear, and if it is a rational fear, react accordingly, and if it isn't, take some responsibility for your disproportionate emotion, then calm the fuck down. It's that thing. If you went to the police, whose job it is to assess whether something is criminal and actionable, and they told you it's not criminal and actionable, rather than say, oh, the police are persecuting me because they won't fucking jump when I say frog, instead of thinking that to yourself, what the sane and rational response was, if I went to the police and they said something wasn't actionable, maybe I'm being a little bit disproportionately upset and should calm the fuck down. Moving on.
Level of abuse, this level of abuse directed towards women who speak out against men's violence and abuse of women shows exactly why our work is necessary. OHP.
And again, I'm just gonna point this out. Did you think about any of this when you were persecuting Steam? When you were snitching on Steam to MasterCard and Visa? Did you wonder how it must feel for the people working at Steam to have their entire ability to make money or fucking have a career threatened? Did you care about any of the men, boys, or non-feminist women who you probably were threatening the careers of when you did that? No? Well then, I'm sorry, but the world's smallest violin music is all I can give you at that point.
You done?
If you get to harass and threaten people's livelihoods and never think about the consequences, then I'm sorry, but you can miss me when it's your turn. When turnabout is fair play and what's good for the goose is good for the gander, you can miss me with the, oh, we're so persecuted, when you didn't think about that when you were in the process of persecuting people.
You done?
Yeah, moving on.
I'm sorry, but I legitimately just don't care about this kind of stuff. I stopped caring a long time ago. I just want to enjoy stuff.
I know. But we live in a crazy world, and if we don't call it out, no one will. So,
Yeah, but if you also don't call it out, then it's not really effective. Not really affecting, so. And we don't torture ourselves every week, Dalton.
people should get called on their bullshit, and I make it a personal point to call people on their bullshit. So, anyway, moving along.
You could at least say it in a quicker manner.
Fair enough. Moving along.
OHPI, what can people do to help? Let's shout over the course of this campaign and others before it. We've identified key actions that can significantly impact our advocacy efforts and combat targeted abuse. Even committing to just one practical step from the actions below directly strengthens our efforts, helps protect our team, and sends a clear, united message.
Collective shouts activism is targeted abuse. It's targeted financial abuse. Given that in 2025, almost no one can do any business without a credit card on file somewhere, if you go after someone's credit card company, you're as good as going after their ability to feed themselves. Because I don't know if you've noticed this, but living in 2025 takes money, and money, one way or the other, requires a payment processor or credit card company. So going after someone's credit card company is as good as going after their ability to feed themselves and not be fucking homeless. So I'm sorry, but you can miss me with the, oh, we're being targeted, we're being the targets of abuse, when you target and abuse people and never think about the consequences of those actions unless and until someone points it out to you by calling you a bitch on the internet, for example. Moving on.
Combat misinformation. Share accurate, verified information from our website and social media accounts whenever you see false claims circulating online. Correct false narratives. Focus on facts rather than engaging in arguments with trolls. Okay, to be fair, it's kind of hard to do these days with how basically how many false narratives are constantly created and shaped and formed.
Yeah, and again, I am calling out false narratives, Collective Shout. I'm calling out your false narratives against Steam. This is the thing again. If you make a living out of harassing people and threatening their livelihoods, my sympathy for you when it's your turn to get the same treatment is going to be somewhat minimal. You financially harassed Steam, and you morally harassed Visa and MasterCard into doing what you wanted them to do. So no, I don't give a shit about your definition of harassment and shit, because you harass people and then you don't like it when you get harassed. Well, in the future, Collective Shout, if you don't like being harassed, maybe consider that when you are in the process of harassing people. If you make your fucking living harassing people for moralistic bullshit reasons, then I'm sorry, but you don't get the sympathy vote when it's your turn to get the same treatment. Moving on.
Have our message. Sign and share Collective Shout led positions and campaign actions regularly shared across our social media platforms, amplifying our campaigns, publicly reaffirms our vision and mission, and directly counters misinformation spread by those attempting to distort or undermine our efforts.
What about the misinformation that you perpetuate, Collective Shout? We should just let your misinformation stand, but not any of the misinformation that's targeted against you. Gotcha. Interesting. How about fucking no? How about no misinformation? which includes the misinformation that's in your favor, like this article. Moving on.
Okay. Financially support advocacy and protection. Consider setting up a small recurring donation to support ongoing campaigns, legal advocacy, and efforts to document and respond to online abuse. Share fundraising appeals widely within your networks to amplify Collective Shout's work, even if you can't donate personally.
Yet no, you were not getting a red cent from me, especially because your activism, your advocacy is abusive, is destructive, is misinformed, and is moralistic in exactly the way you're claiming you're being persecuted by. So no, your misinformation doesn't get special treatment. I will call out disinformation whenever I see it, which includes the disinformation in your favor, like this article. Moving on.
View to poison. God damn it. Okay, hold on. There we go. Mouse being weird. Report abusive content, report threats, harassment, doxing, and abusive content immediately through social media reporting tools. Select the appropriate categories such as threats of violence, harassment, or hate speech to improve the likelihood of action. Social media platforms can be frustratingly inconsistent, but more reports equal increased pressure on platforms to act.
So you're saying I should report you for financially harassing Steam and MasterCard and Visa? Sure, I will report you for being financially abusive to Visa, MasterCard, and Steam. And I'm sorry, but yeah, that's going to be where I place my priorities until you stop making a fucking career out of moralistically harassing people. Moving on.
Okay. Public solidarity, publicly acknowledge and thank those speaking out against the objectification of women, sexualized violence, and the misogyny that fuels online abuse. Tagging Collective Shout and using supportive hashtags, privately reach out with messages of support to those of us who have been targeted, showing us we're not alone.
Okay. I publicly support Steam and Visa and MasterCard in telling Collective Shout to get fucked the next time they do this shit. Because I don't support financial abuse. And trying to get someone debanked or trying to get their payment processors and credit card companies to drop them is financial abuse. So yeah, I publicly come out in favor of Steam and publicly come out against financial abusers like Collective Shout. This concludes this public service announcement. Moving on.
All right. Additional analysis. The attention directed to Collective Shout over the game ban has spread to other discussions. Incitement to violence on Reddit. An otherwise sensible Reddit discussion of proposed internet ID laws in Australia linked to this tweet containing disinformation about members of Collective Shout. Unfortunately, because my computer is old, it's not showing the image. Let me see if I can get it, though.
Before we address the disinformation against Collective Shout, we have to call out the disinformation from Collective Shout, which they gave Visa and MasterCard in the hopes of getting Steam debanked. So, yeah, no. If we're calling out disinformation, the disinformation that you guys beget, Collective Shout, takes priority over the disinformation that was then produced about you, assuming it actually is disinformation and not just people calling out you for being financially abusive twats. Moving on.
I mean, I got the images. If you want me to see them, I just gotta stop. Give me a second. This was on was it on?
Is that the actual end of the article, though?
No. There's more.
God damn it, these people like hearing themselves talk. And yes, I am aware of the pot and kettle situation there.
Yeah. All right. The Guardian has covered the clutch of shot shenanigans, but blank was appointed because they blurred it. Was appointed to the stockholder advisory board for the government's age assurance technology. She will be part of the body that decides how censorship is enacted. This woman is anti-abortion, anti-vax, anti-expression, anti-woman. She wants to ban adverts, bakeries from cheeky jokes, shun any company raising money for breast cancer, wrong lies about video games being marketed to kids. Wants Detroit Become Human banned, but defends cuties. She has labeled me a man. She has lied endlessly. She threatened to sue another woman for daring to speak against her in 2012. No wonder they think they're god emperors. I knew she was having meetings with officials, but I was looking at finance, not this. This is bad. Australians need to rise up. And again, this was supposed to, it's some disinformation, as they said. So
Yeah, that's not disinformation. That's just calling you out for doing the shit that you do, Collective Shout.
Hey, Retro. You're good.
Hey, DT.
To be fair, I probably should have said something earlier today before just posting that we're live. So that's on me.
Feel free to catch up, DT. We will see you later.
Honestly, you don't have to. You can catch up after. Just because I don't really care about this article, nor do I want to try to answer questions when you catch up. To be fair, Dawn would be answering them mostly, but I just
most likely. Anyway,
this both instances of Luigi posting in the replies. Luigi posting uses references to Luigi Maggiotti, I think. Maggion. The accused killer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson as a coded call for assassination. Okay.
Yeah, next.
I'm not going to say anything about that, to be fair.
I think it's probably a little bit of an exaggeration to call it advocating for assassination, but moving on.
The LGBTQIA plus community is manipulated. I'm sorry, I just think I had a fucking. You know what? No, I'm not going to say that because I had a family member who went through that shit, so it feels a bit mean to say it.
Mm-hmm.
But God, why do they keep adding fucking letters?
Because they care more about appropriating the victimhood than they do about accurately representing actual people on the ground.
And Dalton can say that because he is gay, or well, bisexual, but mostly likes men.
Yeah, I am in fact gay, so I will call out the LGBTQ etc. movement.
Okay,
when they're not being representative of gay people on the ground and try to use other gay people essentially as human fucking shields.
Okay, sidebar. I know you told me you're bisexual, but because you mostly prefer men, are you just technically gay at this, like, by actual definition? Then
it's just easier to simplify it down to gay because I made the mistake of telling my mother I was bi once, and so now every time I talk about the fact that I mostly like guys, she goes, well, maybe you're just confused because you did tell me you were bi that one time, and that's why I just started going, no, fuck that. It, if that's going to get used against me, then I'm just going to start identifying as gay. Because goddamn it.
Jesus Christ, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the removal of games from the indie game store ick.io in particular also aroused anger in the LGBTQIA plus community. It's weird for me to say this, but LGBTQ plus had a much better ring to it.
Yeah. Plus, the existence of the plus kind of implies all the other ones that aren't listed. So I don't see why we have to make explicit additions to the acronym when the plus already covers anything more, niche.
Yeah. Okay, coming on the heels of various attempted bans on LGBTQIA plus related material in libraries and schools in the U.S. This was immediately categorized on Blue Sky as another religious conservative attack on LGBTQIA plus media.
Sweethearts, Collective Shout aren't right wing traditionalists. They're feminists. By the way, I am against censorship and banning in just about every single context. But yeah, no, Collective Shout are not traditionalists or right wingers. They are feminists. They just happen to be trans exclusive ones rather than trans inclusive ones. This is just this is just the fucking Protestant Reformation of the feminist movement. That you have one half of the feminist movement that includes trans women in their definition of women, and then you have one group of feminists who don't include trans women in their definition of woman. That's just feminist on feminist violence, my darling. That's not right wing traditionalism. Not that I would be in favor of it if it were right wing traditionalists trying to do it either, but yeah. Moving on.
All right. Blue Sky users don't appear to be directly containing members of Collective Shout. However, they are pushing a narrative of Collective Shout as being part of a broader fascist movement to suppress minorities. Jesus Christ.
It doesn't have to be fascist to call out Collective Shout, and Collective Shout aren't fascists either necessarily. What they are is moralistically authoritarian cunts. That is a perfectly accurate portrayal of Collective Shout, and it should be enough to call them out for being moralistically authoritarian cunts. You don't need to tack other things on top of it and make them fascists or make them right wingers or make them anything else. Anyone who is a moralistically authoritarian twat should stop being a moralistically authoritarian twat. That is my principle. It doesn't matter if it's the Helen Lovejoy saying, "Won't somebody please think of the children?" or if it's the Anita Sarkeesians going, "Won't somebody please think of women and minorities?" Moralistic authoritarian twats, especially the ones that try to use other people's victimhood as a human shield, should fucking stop doing that shit and should be opposed on that basis alone. Moving on.
This has led to a movement to have Collective Shout delisted as a charity by sending complaints to the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission.
They call themselves a charity while trying to get people debanked. Yeah, no, fuck that noise. Fuck that noise entirely.
Moving on.
Okay. Yeah, moving on.
Inclusion, the Online Hate Prevention Institute, has been shocked by both the extreme nature and volume of the content We have seen attacking Collective Shout the women who work there and those that serve on its board of directors. The connect comes from accounts across multiple platforms. In some cases, new throwaway accounts have been created in an effort to anonymously post threats while trying to avoid any consequences. These are serious cases of cyber harassment, and there needs to be government responses, including international cooperation between law enforcement agencies. Threats of death and hard R are not free speech, not even in the U.S., where some of the trolls clearly come from. This is an evolving story, and we will continue to provide support to Collective Shout.
So collective shout and hate prevention Australia. Should the American government call out collective shout for trying to moralistically shame into compliance no less than 3 American companies? First Visa and MasterCard, and then Steam, because they would be well within their rights to call you guys a bunch of fucking terrorists by that very definition. If that's the game we're playing, then y'all struck first. Y'all tried to financially deplatform people who were just doing their fucking jobs. And you were trying to apply Australian legal standards to American companies. If I were a member of the American government, I would certainly be interested in treating that as the frankly criminal position that it is. Moving on.
Okay. This is something I found that I thought was worth talking about because, well, we've covered it before. We've covered stuff like this before.
Yep. Gen V is a really good spin-off. Hopefully Bot Rising will also be one.
Yeah, and here are the characters. So yeah, the article, which you can find listed in the description, is from Deadline. Everything we know about the Boys prequel series, Vought Rising, so far, written by Desi Gomez, published August 18th, 2005. Reason why I'm giving you guys just an image now is because in my computer, the images themselves don't show up on the article, and just wanted to make sure you guys saw the designs.
Mm-hmm.
Which, it's weird how the costumes, to be fair, the Boys, like the TV series, have really good costumes, even better than a lot of like other like genuine superhero stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird, right? Like that's
especially because the whole point of The Boys is supposed to be how superheroes are some kind of corporate stooge bullshit.
I believe also. Well, okay, I don't. To be fair, I don't really give a shit about The Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Vought Rising marks another spin-off series in the world of The Boys, expanding off of Eric Kripke's Mothership series, which still has one more season on the way. The prequel series was first announced over a year ago during San Diego Comic-Con 2024. Jensen Ackles and Aya Cash will lead the show with a stacked cast of soups. Everything to know about Vought Rising.
I hope we get to see Frederick Vought as a character. Like, his backstory is really interesting to me. I want to see more of it, like, actually contemporaneously.
Okay, listen to that. Dom wants to hear about a Yahtzee scientist.
Okay, but to be fair, like, as a concept, creating what essentially amounts to super soldier serum is interesting. So, like, if we're allowed to hire Werner von Braun in NASA because Project Paperclip, then yes, I am allowed to find a Nazi scientist who created what essentially amounts to super soldier serum. Interesting, damn it. Plus, they kind of alluded to some of his backstory already with
Stormfront.
With Stormfront, so
wife.
it'd be.
Who was his wife?
Yeah, so it would be interesting to see um his perspective, especially given how we know how exploitative the company that bears his name became after his time. So it'd be interesting to see what Vought's actual thoughts on like the original Vought were um when he was still alive and kicking and doing things.
All right. Um. Okay. When does Mount Rising come out? Release date has not yet been specified for this prequel series to The Boys. Has Mount Rising begun production? Production is set to begin this month, which August.
Mm-hmm.
Wait
So
a
we'll
minute.
probably see it sometime either next year or the year after, is what I'm guessing.
Yeah. Who will be in Vought Rising? Jensen Ackles and Aya Cash are set to headline and produce Vought Rising, in which they will reprise their characters from The Boys, Soldier Boy and Stormfront, respectively. Although at that time she would have been Liberty.
Yes, which I assume they probably will reference.
I hope so. Keep continuity.
Yes, which to be fair, they are reasonably good at for the most part.
Deadline broke the news of Elizabeth Posey's casting uh, in March 2025. Variety first reported the casting of Will Hochman, Blue Bloods, Jordan Myrie, Niccolo Passetti, and Ricky Staffareri, who's from The Bear, and Brian J. Smith from Sense8 were added as series regulars in August 2025. Deadline first reported the additions of Mason Dye, Stranger Things, and Kiki Lane, the Old Guard 2, as series regulars in August 2025. Dye had previously been cast as Bombsight in season 5 of The Boys. Prime Video revealed some core cast members and their characters in costume in August 2025. Hochman will play Torpedo, and Posey will play Private Angel.
I wonder who will play. I wonder who will play Frederick Vought, assuming that if they don't have him, I'm going to be kind of annoyed. Because
It would be.
it's
Wait,
called Vought Rising. Vought should be a character. Damn it!
and it would have been called Vought American at the time as well. Remember?
Right? Yeah.
Before they changed it to, was it Vought Farmers? No, Vought.
International, I think.
Yeah.
Especially given that Vought is a major supporting character in Soldier Boy and Stormfront's backstory. It'd be kind of frustrating if we never got to see Vought.
I do also want to point this out for Jensen Ackles' Soldier Boy costume. Because obviously it's supposed to be like in the 50s, like so it's post World War II.
Mm-hmm.
His costume looks a lot better here than the one they had him, doing for like the videos and stuff. Where he supposedly led on Omaha.
Right.
So I wonder if that's a conscious. So it makes me think. Obviously, it's a redesigned suit,
Mm-hmm.
but it looks good.
Well, it's also supposed to show how Vought became kind of lazy and grungy over time.
Yeah. All right, what is Vought Rising about? It's a twisted murder mystery about the origins of Vought in the 1950s, the early exploits of Soldier Boy, and the diabolical maneuvers of a soup known to fans as Stormfront, who was then going by the name Clara Vought. Kripke said. Kripke and showrunner Paul Grilong told fans at Comic-Con 2024. Cannot wait to blow your minds and trouble your souls with this salacious, grisly saga drenched in blood and Compound V. It actually sounds interesting. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, and Eric Kripke is very good. Is very good at this sort of thing. I mean, this is the guy who gave us Supernatural. So, although to be fair, um, at some point they're gonna have to stop using Soldier Boy, because I, for one, am on team. You should cast Jensen Ackles as the new Batman, assuming they don't want to do the smart thing and weave weave the Pattinson Batman into the main continuity.
Now they've been pretty adamant about that.
Yeah, so assuming they don't want to do the smart thing and just tell Matt Reeves to get the fuck over himself, they should go with the fan casting and cast Jensen Ackles as Batman. He would love to play it. The fans would love to see him play it. He's already done it in voice work. Just and it's not like James Gunn is above fan casting, because although to be fair, extremely warped, twisted fan casting, considering that we wanted him as Hal Jordan, James. We didn't want him as Guy Gardner, but I guess it technically counts. But yeah, seeing as James Gunn is willing to indulge in fan casting, get Jensen Ackles to be Batman. He can play the role physically. He has done it already in voice work, and he and the fans would both like to see him play it. So do it now.
All right. Soldier Boy and Stormfront have similar origins. Ackles Soldier Boy is the first non-aging American soup created by Frederick Vought during World War II. Stormfront was Vaught's first successful test subject for Compound V, and they got married before moving to the United States. The Boys, who else is behind Vought Rising? The Boys series executive producer Paul Grelong serves as executive producer and showrunner on Vought Rising, which comes from the main creative auspice behind the Boys franchise, led by the Mothership's developer, executive producer, and showrunner Eric Kripke. Kripke executive produces Vought Rising alongside Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, James Reaver, Neil H. Moritz, Ori Marmor, Pavun Shetty, Ken Levin, Jason Netter, Garth Ennis, Derek Robertson, and Michaela Starr. The series is produced by Sony Pictures Television and Amazon MGM Studios and associated with Kripke Enterprises, Point Grey Pictures, and Original Film.
I hope Seth Rogen isn't too terribly involved. He's not very good at writing.
Well, I think he's also a producer on the Boys as well, and he doesn't seem that involved either, except for like that cameo. Was it 3? No, 2. No, it was 3.
Yeah, I don't mind him as an actor, but he's not good at writing, so he should not be involved.
Are there
as much as possible?
Are there other spin-offs in the world of The Boys? Yes, other spin-offs include the animated The Boys Presents Diabolical, the college set spin-off Gen V, second season of which arrives in September, and the upcoming The Boys Mexico. Executive produced by Diego Luna and Gael Garcia Bernal. I did not know about that one.
Well, good. You get some representation there, Brainstormer. But Tish.
I'm not gonna reply to that because it should be expected of a white trash hillbilly son of a bitch like you.
Hey, you can't even be mad at me for that one. You explicitly made essentially a Mexican version of Ta-Nehisi Coates Black. Although, to be fair, yours is much better than his.
Actually, funny enough, I did come across a series on Netflix called Supercell, which honestly uses the concept of Black AF, which is what it's called now, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
That does the concept of black, like only black superpowered people, far better because they actually have a reason why.
Well, and to be fair, that bar is not very high because Ta-Nehisi Coates Black was never really interested in something like world building or in-universe logic or characterization or anything other than re BLM bullshit.
So, I mean, it does tackle social issues, obviously, but obviously it focuses on the from the perspective of the characters. Um,
Heaven forfend a franchise that actually gives a damn about world building and in-universe logic for 5 minutes.
but I would recommend
Huzzah.
I would recommend checking it out and watching it. It's really good. Um, Basically, the idea is like if someone in your bloodline has had sickle cell disease, it eventually mutates into what is called supercell, which is someone developing super abilities of some kind.
Neat.
So there is a scientific basis for it, actually. So,
So does
which is
that mean? So does that mean white people or people of other nationalities with sickle cell anemia would potentially have the capacity for supercell
uh,
eventually?
it's only the only first season has come out, and I'm not sure if a second season is in motion yet. But it's mainly revolved mainly because I believe sickle cell is obviously more related to
Yeah, it's more prevalent among black people, but
but I would they haven't made mention of it yet. It could be a possibility, maybe. Uh Again, it's kind of just been setting stuff up in the first season as it does, right?
yep, yep, presumably, yeah,
But
that
also
tends to
it's
be
not
how
set
that works.
it's also not set in America. It's set in England. It's UK. It's a UK superhero project.
Interesting.
Uh, Also, I just like there is a song called Piccadilly, which obviously is like the Piccadilly in London, which is also where
Mm-hmm.
it's the primary setting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just such a good theme.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so grand and epic.
People really have been slacking on like musical themes lately, so it's good to see it come back.
Anyway, more of Dalton's depressing bullshit.
I have a stupidity detector. It goes ding when they're stupid, and I
Okay.
frequently have to replace the bell because it goes ding so often. Uh,
Okay. It's from GameBiz.com. Oh no, GameIndustry.biz. A return to the Culture Wars, written by Rob Fahey, published August 22nd, 2025. The subheader is bitter fights over game censorship feel like ancient history, but conservatives have never considered the matter settled, and attacks on sexual or LGBTQ plus themed games are the opening move of a broader re-litigation.
uh, Already their framing is bullshit, but we'll go into it
Hey,
further when
I'll be right.
okay.
I'll be right back.
Hmm.
Well, unless you want me to read like a little bit, just so you have.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I'm good to disappear for a second, or I'm good to read, so you have something to talk about while I'm gone.
Do what you need to do, and then come back.
Okay.
Oh, God damn it! I'm so tired.
Okay, I'm back.
Mhm.
Okay, it's almost a quarter of a century since Grand Theft Auto 3 launched, in the process effectively heralding the beginning of a decade in which video games were thrust into the heart of a bitterly fought culture war.
Um, y'all are really reaching. You're reaching between two different kinds of moralistic censorship here. There was the there was the traditional family values censorship of the 90s and early 2000s, and then there was the social justice oriented censorship beginning round about 2013 and continuing until pretty much just last year, give or take, or just this year, in fact. So, yeah, you guys are trying to frame this as if the tradcons never went away or were always the problem. And no, those are two different strains of moralistic authoritarianism you have there. One of them was the Jack Thompson style family values bullshit, and the other was the Andy Sarkeesian style feminist frequency bullshit. But they are two different and distinct forms of moralistic authoritarianism. Moving on.
Oh, fucking Christ. I think I'm dying.
You want I should get the necromancy books?
Honestly, I just don't want to be a rotting corpse, man. Like a soul in a rotting corpse. I don't want to be a ghoul.
I if I do it quickly enough, the bindings won't loosen, so there won't be any need for rotting. If I do it quickly enough.
I just don't want to take the chance. Plus, don't you have to be like close to do the spell?
No, it just has to be as close to your death as possible. So if you die, I am making with the necromancy as quickly as possible for your benefit.
Well, also I have heard story. Well, isn't there also that thing like if you die and come back, like a part of your soul is missing?
Not unless you are an incompetent hack. And I am not.
Question: have you resurrected
Uh-huh.
or something before?
No, this would be the first time, but you're my best friend, so obviously I would try to do it right.
Don, please take no offense to this.
Mm-hmm.
I respect you as a wizard or a
But
cultist, whatever you want to call yourself. If
uh
it's your
but
first time, I don't feel that confident.
fair enough, but I don't want to live in a world that doesn't have you in it, so there.
Also, I'm just scared of what I'm going to see on the other side, and I'd rather not come back with that knowledge.
Oh, you'll be fine. I'm sure you were earmarked for the pearly gates and shit.
Oh, okay, see, I'm not too sure on that. But also, uh, it's either I wind up at heaven, then I get yanked back to the land of the living where all this shit and bullshit and all the terrible people are, which is
Okay, so you're worried about me essentially accidentally pulling a Willow from Buffy.
that, or I end up in hell, I come back, and I'm so scared of that because I realize I'm actually a terrible fucking person, and that'll just spiraling me more into a depressive state than I already am, even though I hide it pretty well.
If
Or
you if you qualify for hell, I'm going to war against God over it. because any definition of hell that involves you going there is a fucked up definition.
Or 3, and this is the one I'm actually most terrified of. I don't see anything, and then I come back. That's going to fuck me up a lot more.
To be fair, that would probably just be a result of you being kind of in limbo at the time. Which if I was punctual about the resurrection, there's an argument for that, assuming that I was assuming I was functional. It kind of would make sense that you would be between worlds for a bit. Anyway, this has been an incredibly morbid sidebar on Podcast the Storm. Moving on to the next thing.
When don't we have that? Anyway, for those too young to remember the era clearly, it's hard to explain just how serious and concerted efforts to censor, ban, and otherwise regulate the content of video games were. Socially conservative politicians, commentators, and opportunists on both sides of the Atlantic rushed to make video games a scapegoat for youth violence.
That did definitely happen, but then it went away, and then the social justice censorship started, which they attacked games while they were in the process of being made in the first place, rather than necessarily censoring shit. Although there was plenty of advocacy for censorship from the social justice types as well, given how they reacted whenever there was a game that bothered to have things like fan service. So, yeah, no, I also oppose the Jack Thompson style traditionalist conservative bullshit, but I also oppose the Anita Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu, and Zoe Quinn brand of censorship as well. The social justice censorship. The won't somebody please think of women and minorities. As annoying as the won't somebody please think of the children people also are, I can oppose them and oppose the won't somebody please think of women and minorities people at the same time.
God damn it. Like, legitimately, it's the cough, and it's not even like. It's just so annoying at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely better than I was a week ago, though.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely say that. Had to miss Monday for work. That's fine. Okay. This wasn't a new strategy. It was the same type of attack that had in previous decades targeted music genres like rap, metal, or horror movies and other video nasties. Sorry. There was prior art in targeting video games too. Conservative commentators famously tried to implicate Doom in the Columbine High School massacre in the late 90s.
Yes, and again, that definitely happened, but after that, and before now, there was the social justice equivalent of that. Please stop ignoring the last dozen years in favor of things that happened 30 years ago. I also oppose the traditionalist family values, won't somebody please think of the children, Helen Lovejoy types, but I also oppose the Anita Sarkeesian influenced Karens as well. This is like this isn't a one or the other situation. You can oppose both of these, and it's kind of disturbing me how ignorant you are of shit that's happened for the last dozen years and why you're now trying to resurrect the shit that stopped happening like 20 years ago. And again, as someone who has principles, I can and do oppose people like Matt Walsh. When he says anime and video games are satanic, or Gavin McInnes when he says that adult men shouldn't be playing video games, they should be building tables. So, yeah, no, I can oppose both of these things. I can oppose the traditionalist family values, moralistic authoritarian types, and the social justice / woke moralistic authoritarian types. Moving on.
GTA 3, however, was a turning point. Attacks on video games had largely been occasional potshots when there wasn't much else in the news. Right-wing newspapers could reliably knock up some pearl clutching around a video game when there wasn't much else to fill space with.
Bless you.
God damn it! That hurt my lungs.
Oh dear.
It's not that strong sneeze you have that makes you feel like your lungs just try to punch out your ribs.
I have had those. They suck.
I bet they suck more for you, given given how fucked up your body is.
This is also a possible truth, but I can't speak for everybody else with regards to these.
Don't you have brittle bones?
No, as relatable as Mr. Glass is for me, I don't have osteogenesis imperfecta. Mercifully, I've that is one small mercy. I've never had a broken bone. I hope I won't unless I have to get surgery, which I might have to at some point because my feet are starting to turn in, and that's probably going to be something I'm gonna have to. My ankles are gonna have to be broken so that they can be reset properly, but that won't have to be a thing for another couple of years probably yet. Moving on.
Okay. Tax on. I read that. Now they have become an absolute core issue for conservative culture warriors. GTA 3's commercial success, piggybacking off the broad success of PlayStation and turning games into a mainstream medium in that era, was part of the reason for that. The other part of the reason was that GTA 3 included not just a lot of violence, but also allusions to sex and prostitution. It's Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, they doing like knowingly immoral like street crime shit is a huge part of the IP. And always has been. I guess there was less focus on the whole, prostitutes thing in the previous ones, but there was always a certain level of Grand Theft Auto that was kind of part of the fun of Grand Theft Auto has always been your character doing immoral shit for the lulz. It's kind of like in Elder Scrolls when you go on the murderer run and decide to kill all the NPCs. Moving on.
Alright. It wasn't the first game to include sexual content by any means, but it was this aspect that sent many conservatives into a frenzy. It's no accident that arguably the biggest blow these cultural warriors were able to strike against the GTA series was over the hot coffee incident, in which it transpired that code and assets for a minigame in which the protagonist had sex with his girlfriend had been left on the disc for GTA San Andreas, although it wasn't accessible to players without using mods. Oh, I think I heard about this, yeah. It's kind of funny. Feel like you have no comment on that.
Sorry, I was reading what DT said. I don't think that's what he was referring to. I think he was referring to the fact that I drag him along with me as I bitch about all the evil, stupid shit that we have to deal with every week.
To be fair, it can be both, depending. But yeah, it was mostly that.
Mhm. Anyway, moving along.
In a game in which you could gleefully murder people by their hundreds, it was an inaccessible animation of some fully clothed humping that got the game re-rated adults only by the ESRB and earned Rockstar warning from the FTC. Ultimately, though, this is an argument that conservatives lost pretty comprehensively.
Yes, like 20 years ago. And then the Social Justice Party showed up and started bitching about their particular moralistic bugaboos. And treating Anita Sarkeesian like a fucking saint. Stop ignoring the last 12 years in favor of focusing on shit that stopped happening like 20 years ago, for the most part. I'm all for calling out people like Kevin McGinnis and Matt Walsh when they say stupid shit, but let's not act like the conservatives are the only people doing moralistic authoritarian shit, especially for the last 12 years or so. Do you remember that Gamergate happened and how the feminists were totally against it happening? Because again, I'm I am against people like Jack Thompson, but I'm also against people like Anita Sarkeesian. Moving on.
All right, games were repeatedly confirmed to be protected speech in the United States and came to be generally accepted as a creative medium deserving of free expression in most other Western jurisdictions. The argument that violent video games were responsible for violent crime among young people, meanwhile, was debunked over and over again by statistical analyses and psychological studies. Most people probably treat this whole era as a historical curiosity, a growing pain for the medium, similar to the backlash experienced by many other types of media in the past. Comics, something that needed to be fought and resisted, but which is now over and done with. And
well, for the most part, it is, because for the most part, the TradCon stopped having any power to do so like 20 years ago, and the Social Justice Party showed up and started doing their shit. And the games journos sided with the social justice twats and against the actual gamers, just like Jack Thompson sided with the fucking censorship twats and against the gamers back in the day. Stop pretending like the last 12 years of social justice dominated moralism was not a thing. Please. Moving on.
Okay. You might ask librarians and authors at pretty much any point in the past century and a half how well letting your guard down in these situations, assuming a battle won to be an issue settled forever, tends to work out. With cultural conservatism now back in the ascendancy in many countries, there are plenty of groups on the side who absolutely have not forgotten how they lost the battle over video games and are aching to relitigate it from their newfound positions of socio-cultural power using the smart, sharper approaches that they've been honing for a decade.
The conservatives did lose back in the day. The only reason why they are in any meaningful way back in the ascendancy is because pretty much as soon as the family values TradCon stopped being the moralistic cause du jour, along comes people like Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, and Brianna Wu, and tries to inculcate the same thing, but for social justice. They swapped the Hays Code of the TradCon variety and swapped people like J. Thomas Bowdler for people like Frederick Wortham for people like Anita Sarkeesian and systems like ESG and DEI, and replaced Bowdlerism with cultural sensitivity readers and narrative consultancy. Stop pretending like social justice didn't spend the last 12 years being the moralistically authoritarian cause du jour. Please. I am also against people like Frederick Wortham and Jack Thompson, but I'm also against people like Heather Antos, Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, Brianna Wu, and so on. Like, just because I'm against Bowdlerism and the Comics Code Authority doesn't mean I can't be against ESG and DEI for roughly the same reason. And I'm against people having censors on call, just like I am against people having narrative consultants on call, because those jobs shouldn't fucking exist. I don't care if the morality you're trying to authoritarianly enforce culturally is a traditionalist one, or if it's an intersectional feminist one. I don't agree with moralistic authoritarianism, and it's pissing me off that you're ignoring the almost unilateral control of gaming and every other fucking IP in the universe that social justice had. And that's part of the reason why the right wing became the libertarian party that people rallied around, because while back in the day it used to be the traditionalist tradcons, the family values tradcons that were the censorship oriented moralistic party, it then became the social justice Frankfurt School people who became the censorious ones. And those of us who remained consistent with our principles of fuck your censorship, fuck your morality, it doesn't have any dominion over art, began to oppose social justice accordingly for like the last 12 years. And that doesn't mean I don't call out people like Vin McGinnis and Matt Walsh for them still being stupid and trying to make the traditionalist family values shit come back, but it doesn't mean that I don't call out people like Anita Sarkeesian, Zoe Quinn, Brianna Wu, Heather Antos, Kathleen Kennedy, and so on. Moving on.
Make no mistake, you can see sliding to the medium's most vulnerable fault lines right now is the thin end of a very thick wedge. Conservative groups have weaponized payment processors, as they have in many other cases in recent years, to demand the removal of adult content from digital storefronts like Steam and Ink.io.
So did the intersectional feminists by advocating for things like safe horny and safe edgy, and calling anyone who was in favor of fan service a coomer and a gooner. Do you not stop pretending like the last dozen years haven't happened that way? They have. We swapped the Hays Code for the ESG and DEI standards a long-ass time ago. I would prefer to return to a world of the 90s and 2000s where we take neither the tradcon family values types nor the social justice twats seriously. But that's just me, being consistent with my principle that no one and no moral system should be authoritarianly culturally enforced. Moving on.
Okay. It's a small demand and all seems so reasonable. Pornographic games make lots of people a bit uncomfortable, especially if they're being listed right next to your nice, wholesome games on a storefront. The temptation to argue for appeasement is strong when privately you're thinking to yourself, good riddance, especially Given that a small minority of games involved are pretty unpleasant by most reasonable standards. Not to not to trivialize Neil Muller's famous poem, but the real whole reason they came for the communists first was because they knew lots of ordinary people would quietly think good riddance. He's speaking to a very specific and dark moment in history, but outlining a much more universal strategy and the tragedy of how we fall for it again and again.
Calling everyone a communist is wrong when they're not communists, yes. But calling everyone a fascist when they're not is also wrong. Again, like, I agree with you. I agree that we should have told Jack Thompson and company to get fucked, and we did. But we should have also told Anise Sarkeesian and her cronies to get fucked, and for the last dozen years or so, we didn't. And a lot of people were angry at us for trying to be consistent with the principle that no moral system should be allowed to unilaterally, culturally enforce their morality at the behest of authoritarian morons. Just because I don't like what's the fucking Tradcon family values shit? 1 Million Moms group doesn't mean that I therefore must be in favor of Sweet Baby Inc. I'm not in favor of either of these groups. They both need to shut the fuck up and let art be art and let people enjoy things unironically. Moving on.
Okay. The whole point of coming for the most objectionable group first is to open a fracture, to insert a lever that you can then use to drive it wider and wider.
Kind of like how Soul for Justice spent 12 years calling everyone who disagreed with them a Nazi, even when they weren't. Moving on.
We already know how the wedge starts to widen. Even in this first round, games with LGBTQ plus themes, not necessarily explicit in nature, were being caught up in the sweep and treated as adult content. This mirrors the strategy seen in book banning efforts in the United States. Campaigners created a framework to ban pornographic content, then expand the definition of pornography to include anything related to the lives and existence of minority groups they dislike, and ultimately any kind of content that makes them uncomfortable.
So do the social justice morons. And they have, for at least the last 12 years, basically had unilateral carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they wanted with it. Stop pretending like it's still the, mid 90s. I wish it were still the mid 90s. But frankly, it's not been the 90s for quite a while now. And for the briefest of moments, from the late 80s through the early 2000s and into the early 2010s, it looked like we were finally free of moralistic authoritarians. And then 2013 happened, and a bunch of gamers got demonized by social justice advocates, and the games journalists didn't side with the gamers in that case. They sided with the social justice twats. They lionized people like Anise Sarkeesian as freedom fighters. They called everyone who disagreed with people like Anise Sarkeesian harassers, and basically called everyone who called them out for being a bunch of traitorous twats Nazis and fascists, even when the majority of them were not any such thing. Moving on.
Alright. Give me a sec. Okay. There's no reason to believe that this is where those efforts would stop. People in the industry may be willing to throw LGBTQ plus creators and consumers under the bus to appease the conservative movement, but it won't work. Throwing out chum in the water only attracts more sharks.
Right, but some of those sharks were swarming on the behest of social justice rather than TradCon family value shit. Doesn't mean I agree with the TradCon family value shit, but I don't agree with the social justice shit either. I maintain my sensible middle position of nobody should be allowed to enforce their morality through authoritarian censorship and rulership over culture unilaterally. Moving on.
Okay, conservatives who have carried a chip on their shoulder about the failure of their campaigns against video games for decades are circling emboldened by the realization that they can sidestep all those problematic free speech legalities by weaponizing commercial and financial infrastructure instead of courts and legislation.
So did social justice for like 12 years. I agree, people like Gavin McInnes and Matt Walsh should not be allowed to resurrect the TradCon family value shit of yesteryear. But nor should we be in favor of the Anita Sarkeesian brand social justice crap. And we certainly shouldn't allow it to have unilateral carte blanche any more than we let the TradCon family values types do. Neither of these sects should be allowed to have unilateral cultural control and moral control over every IP in the fucking universe. Please stop pretending like the social justice movement never happened. Moving on.
Okay, one sec. Okay. Moreover, the defenses that won this battle last time may no longer work. The modern conservative obsession with redefining what is healthy, childhood vaccinations are out, raw milk is in, based on political rather than scientific or evidence-based standards, will equally be applied to media consumption. Scientific studies analysis exonerating games of any connection to youth violence mean little unless in an era when science is dismissed and vibes, not evidence, drive public discourse and even government policy. Movement with the taste of blood in its mouth from banning pornographic or LGBTQ plus to themed games will quickly find new targets in the long, long list of things that make them a bit uncomfortable, a list they've been carefully curating since the 1990s. Uh, anything to
Again, I agree. The TradCon family values types should be told at every interval to get fucked when they try to enforce their morality on people. But so should social justice. Anita Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu, and Zoe Quinn went to the U fucking N and complained that they were getting quote unquote harassed online for saying stupid immoralistic shit. And the UN was obliged to take them seriously. Stop pretending like this didn't happen and has been happening for the last dozen years. The Tradcons got soundly told to go fuck themselves like 20 years ago, and then social justice showed up and started doing the same thing from the other side. And I didn't like either of these people, and so I, who remain consistent in my opposition to the Tradcon family values types, also was opposed to social justice for like a dozen years. Moving on.
all right. Some people in the industry may be willing to throw LGBTQ plus creators and consumers under the bus to appease. Okay, I read that. I don't know why they had it enlarged. This is a slippery slope argument, But the key figures in this movement, from Project 2025 author and Trump cabinet member Russ Vought, all the way down to the small campaign groups spearheading these censorship movements, have been quite open about their strategy being to launch headlong down that slippery slope. Pornography is the wedge issue. LGBTQ plus themes are prying the gap open further.
That was also the thin end of the wedge for social justice as well. The quote unquote victimization of women and sexualization of women. Please stop pretending that this didn't happen. It did. It's been happening for the last dozen years, and it only just now stopped happening, or at least moved in the direction of stopping happening, because people got so sick of the left wing being the authoritarian party via social justice that they started seeing the libertarian side of the right wing again. Please keep in mind, both of you, that there are 4 quadrants in the political compass. There is the libertarian left and the authoritarian left, and the libertarian right and the authoritarian right. I am against the authoritarian sides of both of these. I would prefer if we cut the political compass in half on the horizontal so that only libertarian right and libertarian left positions were considered valid. But please stop pretending like authoritarian leftism doesn't exist. It exists, and it is existing and has existed in the public eye and almost unilaterally for like a dozen years now. Just like the right wing needs to remind itself that just because the right wing is currently the Libertarian Party doesn't mean that they don't have authoritarian tendencies that they need to keep in fucking check. The TradCon family values types of yesteryear were and are still wrong, but so are social justice / wokeness / DEI and ESG bullshit. Moving on.
Okay. By the time the mechanisms being used to target pornographic games or LGBTQ plus themed games are turned on games for featuring any kind of sexualized content or same-sex romance options or depictions of violence against conservative in groups except loud outrage at any game in which players can shoot at police officers, though blasting away at brown people and military shooters will no doubt remain just fine.
Social justice frames any fan service they don't like as people being gooners and coomers. Please stop pretending that this does not happen. All you're doing at this point is saying we like things that we consider quote unquote safe horny, and we dislike anything that could be resembling fan service. I want both of these things to continue to exist as and when they can convince an audience to buy them. Not by moralistically shaming them, but by actually making good games. If you don't make good games, or you make games that are not appealing to anyone, you are not entitled to success. Moving on.
Alright. It'll be a bit too late to start lobbying your political leaders. That was the end of that sentence. I didn't get to finish. If you're not even in the United States, you might never have that option at all, though you'll still be caught in the global splash damage of U.S. payment processors' domestic decisions. In 6 months or a year, when some ambitious conservatives start thinking they can take down GTA 6 and land another hammer blow on a medium they've hated since Jack Thompson's heyday, the moment for the industry to really take a united stand in defense of its creative freedoms will already have passed.
Video games should have created a united front against social justice as well, but they didn't, and that's why the right wing is on the ascendancy now. Not because people find authoritarian right-wingism more attractive now than they did, but because libertarian right-wingers exist. And when the left wing becomes the moralistic authoritarian censorious ones, the right wing libertarians start looking very attractive. And yes, Dragon Turtle, Gavin McInnes was the build the table bigot dude. I will send you I will send you the video where he originally did that after the stream. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Walsh wound up quoting Gavin McInnes, so who knows?
All right. Moving on?
Yep.
Okay. By the hold on. Okay. It's now when the games being targeted are relatively small and perhaps even a little uncomfortable to get behind that red lines over free expression truly need to be drawn, and payment processors perhaps sharply remind exactly whose hand is feeding them.
If you cared about the thin end of the wedge, you would have cared about it just as much when Anita Sarkeesian and company showed up and started ideologically and morally capturing industries in the name of social justice, which is now referred to as wokeness. Moving on.
So just for time purposes, and I think it's can handle on its own. I think we'll skip to the positive thing and kind of call it there.
Mm-hmm. Did I not send you the John Della Rose article? I thought I sent you the John Della Rose article already, but
Hold on, let me check, see if you did, because I don't know.
the one where he's talking about principles.
Principles. Hold on, I'm checking. Where was it from?
I think it was from Substack.
Yeah, you sent me that a while ago. I know that. I just sworn we talked about like doing it like a week or so.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
As long as I sent it to you, because if I didn't send it to you, I would have had to.
pragmatism over principle, right?
Yeah, there we go. That's the one.
Yeah. No, you sent you sent that to me like a couple weeks, like a week or so, like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so next week.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, I think we agreed to do it this week because of like, but because of timing and stuff, and we had
That's yeah. Okay, so next week.
yeah. Uh,
Because speaking of calling out TradCon twats when they do the same shit, that article exists, and we will address it next week.
yeah. Anyway, so something positive. Uh, so we covered this a while ago, which is the video game SCP-5K, which is a tactical horror shooter. That's kind of building up its own little thing. It just recently, well, relatively recently, because this trailer is about like I believe a month old or 2 weeks old. Sorry.
Mhm.
And it's an update for it, which showing gameplay of part of it. It's like they're kind of doing chapters for this game that have stories and stuff, and it's really interesting. This is the Discover program. So the first one, the like the base game, was set from the perspective of the UIU, the Unusual Incidents Unit of the FBI, which is kind of seen as a sort of joke in SCP universe.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second one was the Geo. And for those who don't know, this is obviously based off SCP 5000, which is a whole story in itself.
I forget which one 5000 was. Which one was that?
Um, it's like a continuity story thing. I can't. Hold on. Doing a quick Google. Come on, fucking internet. Okay. It's a non-functional mechanical suit identified with the external schematics as an absolute exclusion harness. Um, yeah, it's a story. Well, there's a story surrounding it revolving the Foundation employee who used this suit to discover the horrifying truth. The SCP Foundation has gone insane and orchestrated a plan to eliminate all humanity, motives, and find a way to reset the universe, hopefully succeeding in preventing the entity that feeds on human suffering from consuming the world. So I don't know. It is that like they have that here, but I think they're going their own kind of way with it as well.
Which is fair because the continuity in SCP is always kind of um
Weird.
it is always kind of multiple choice. I know there are like 5 different continuities that are technically semi-canonical.
And I saw a series, like a Minecraft roleplay series based in SCP, and it kind of did its own thing as well. Like it actually had when day breaks happen and everyone's
Mm.
underground and stuff. It's a whole thing. Um, but yeah, uh, I mean, to be fair, you and I have kind of created our own SCP universe, sort of.
We took a lot of inspiration from the SCP universe and the other groups of interest in the SCP universe for
Our,
Lionhearted.
yeah, our superhero and one of our superhero universes.
Yeah,
God,
because
that sounds
because Brainstorm and I can't help ourselves. So
well. I can't help myself. You just egg me on.
and I just pour gasoline on the metaphorical fire.
Right. But yeah, the first like the base game story uh was centered around the UIU. The second one, which is like an update called I believe the Ghost at the uh centered around the GOC and them working together with the UIU to stop the SCP Foundation from doing what they were doing, right? And this one, the Discover program, which I believe is kind of taking some inspiration from like the Outlast Trials game, at least that's how it looked, is from the perspective of the D class. Um, and fun fact, they actually did like they have like dev logs of like explaining some design ideas and stuff, right? Hello? Hello? Hello.
Sorry, my phone died.
I also had issues on my end too. Just internet connection.
So, alternatively, good timing or bad timing, depending on the way you look at it.
Yeah. All right. Where was I? I was just saying something. Oh, right. There was a design thing which we'll get into when you see it. They explained because they didn't really do like human models
Mm-hmm.
because modeling faces and stuff is kind of hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get into it when you see it because it's super interesting because that stuck with me when they explained the designing they did for the D class.
Mm.
Anyway, uh, did we ever think of anything for SCP?
I don't know if we did.
To be fair, I can't
I
really think
mean,
of any.
there are food stuff we could do, like
I
the
just can't.
bag of holding potatoes, for example.
You just want to say potato?
Put fuck it, we'll just do banana.
Okay.
Isn't there a banana pill SCP in like the very early ones too? So
Dude, I have no idea. I haven't, dude. If I delve into SCP, I'm gonna be there for months, and I got other shit to do. You know that.
I am aware. Anyway,
Banana.
banana.
All right.
I always like to end on a positive note, so here is a rousing, uplifting song which is guaranteed to cheer you up. When you attend a funeral, it is sad to think that sooner or later those you love will do the same for you.
I know. Okay, so I knew this voice as soon as I heard it, especially
Tom
when he was singing.
Lenner.
Yeah, who? Fun fact, did the song "Masochism Tango."
He did. Otherwise known as Morticia and Gomez's wedding dance song, probably.
Oh, he just died.
Oh fuck.
July
That makes
26th.
that makes me upset. When did he go?
July 26th.
Oh, the day after my birthday. I'm sorry, Tom.
Oh, he also did Boys and Pigeons in the Park.
Yes, he is one of the original like satirical songwriters. He also wrote a satirical folk song about Werner von Braun.
To be fair,
That's another one of my favorites.
yeah. I probably need to listen to that one.
But the song that is being played now is a song called "We Will All Go Together When We Go."
Which is pretty fitting for the D class, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I wonder if it's going to get to my favorite part of the song before it cuts to something else.
it's 2 minutes and 14 seconds.
Hmm.
But
So,
visually, I do also want to point out, visually, it looks fantastic.
mm-hmm.
Not photorealistic, because to be fair, I despise photorealism. Well, okay, I don't despise it, but I hate how often it takes away the style of.
Yeah, the absence and rebuking of stylization and aesthetic in the name of photorealism is just it's
Like,
basically
I can
almost everything
understand.
wrong with modern day aesthetics.
Okay, so I could understand for like games, maybe like campaign wise, because I'm always a story guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like for like Call of Duty, when they actually did like legit actual storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
like things that have a modern setting in a way. But I mean, to be fair, you can still do like stylization of it. Like Watch Dogs did that.
Yeah. Like I said, photorealistic naturalism is the bane of proper stylization, and it's
Right.
you know,
Anyway,
banana.
And you may have thought it tragic, not to mention other adjectives, to think of all the weeping they will do. But don't you worry, no more ashes, no more sackcloth, and an armband made of black cloth will someday nevermore adorn her sleeve.
Okay, so they might actually be doing my favorite part of the line, my favorite part of the lyrics
okay, I'm
here.
trying to see if we see any like legit. No. Okay, hopefully we get a better image of them. Because again, the design of the D class here, I really like, and just the line they'd use to describe them really sticks with me. So, banana.
Yep, banana.
Or if the bomb that drops on you gets your friend.
Okay, sorry. They showed a shot of the D class here, and I'm working on 480p because it runs a little smoother.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, never mind. Hopefully we get a better shot later. I thought we could see a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Enough.
Bomb.
What the fuck is going on?
Yep. My phone continues to commit regular mutinies for no adequately explained reason.
Mine is. I don't know what. Mine fucking stopped too.
Okay, that's weird. I swear I didn't accidentally set up a sympathetic magic tie or anything. Wouldn't know how to do it with technology anyway, considering that technology and magic frequently bitch at each other.
Oh, okay. Sorry, General. Just saw your comments. Obviously, the fucking my internet and Dalton's phone is being fucking weird tonight for some reason. Okay, so he asked if you've seen the Adams Family in Gotham video he sent you.
I did, yes. Did I, DT? Did I send you the Adams Family Matilda crossover? If I didn't, I will. I remember I sent it to Brainstormer. I'll have to grab it for you if I didn't think to send it to you before.
Glad to see SCP is still going strong. Saying the back rooms never took off as much, though. Probably one of those careful what you wish for things going mainstream and all. Yeah, fair enough. General says I don't think so. To what you just asked.
Okay, so I will also send you that after the stream.
Okay, give me 1 sec. Okay.
Hmm.
I have not seen that one, Giant Turtle, Anna's Vacation in Marvel.
Yeah, I saw that. I think I have seen the Adams Gotham thing, but I haven't seen the Marvel equivalent.
You know, that guy actually, I've been watching that guy, like on his TikTok and his YouTube. Mostly he does
Mhm.
X-Men. He does like X-Men skits and stuff. Really good stuff.
Hmm.
He's actually currently I don't know if he's watched it before, but he is watching X-Men Evolution. Like he's doing like a thing on his YouTube.
Hmm.
He does seem to be a big X-Men fan. So,
Mhm.
and to be fair, X-Men Evolution is what I grew up with. So,
For me, it was reruns of the '90s show, and it was Wolverine and the X-Men. Although I did watch a lot of X-Men Evolution as well, I just didn't watch it quite as often.
oh yeah, no, I've seen those. Those are funny. Although I do wish Lord Deathman could be taken more seriously or have a more serious like role somewhere.
Mhm.
All right. Anyway, banana.
Banana.
The bomb that drops on you gets your friends and neighbors too. There'll be nobody left behind to grieve, and we will all go together when we go. What a comforting fact that is to know.
Okay, so they did do my favorite line in the thing, which is if the bomb that drops on you get your friends and neighbors too, there'll be nobody left behind to grieve.
I am.
I,
I don't know how long it's been established that the Al Ghul family is effectively immortal because of the Lazarus Pit. Because I always assumed it just started with Raish or Roz.
I'm pretty sure he was the one that discovered it, although I could be wrong.
Well, no, okay. Recently, relatively recently, Lord Deathman is in a relationship with Ra's al Ghul's mother, which would imply that she is also immortal, or in the Lazarus Pit and all that.
Ah.
Uh,
Because I do know I do know Roz shared it with Talia, but I didn't know I didn't know that his mom also used it.
well, he also has other kids besides Talia. Like,
Well,
yes,
yeah, but I always assumed he was the one that discovered it,
I don't know.
unless that's been retconned recently.
I
Which
honestly have no idea, man.
yeah.
Continuity's fucked.
Yep, and they don't even seem to be bothering with it anymore, which makes me sad.
Hey, banana.
Yeah.
Universal bereavement and inspiring achievement. Yes, we all will go together when we go. We will all face together when we face. There'll be nobody present at the wake. With complete participation.
Okay, I'm gonna bring it up now because I don't know when we're gonna get a real clear shot of the D class. So they're wearing like they don't even have because you can't see their faces, right? They're wearing like kind of shrouds and stuff, all connected to their suits, their jumpsuits.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's meant to dehumanize them, right? So they can perform tests can be performed on them and all that.
Yeah.
And second, this is the what was said. I'm paraphrasing, of course, been a while since I've seen the devlog, but they're also supposed to act as body bags that if they get like turned into meat mush inside the suits, can be easily taken, zipped, zipped
Yeah,
open.
we all know how readily the Foundation will just write off the D class. Although to be fair, as as far as I'm aware, in most continuities of the SCP,
I'll be right
the D
back.
class are people who have been consigned to death row. So you just sort of have to hope that all the ones that the SCP Foundation uses are like unrepentant murderers, because then you might feel a little bit less bad for them. Although I know that at least some of the D class are just mental patients, because, like, for example, in one of my favorite SCPs, the Devil's Deal Desk, I know there's one of the D classes that are mentally retarded, and because he ends up making the Devil's Deal for a Sloppy Joe and winds up losing a toy uh, that he likes in exchange for it.
Um,
But yeah, the majority of D class are supposed to be death row inmates, so maybe feel a little bit less bad about that. Granted, the SCP Foundation is basically just has the ethics committee so that they can tell them no. So who knows at this point?
Yeah, it's to this. When I've seen this, I've seen the. I don't know if you're thinking of like the Outlast Trials, Dragon Turtle. I think it's supposed to kind of be like that. The gameplay for this part, at least. The rest of SCP-5K is like first-person shooter kind of games. Well, it does seem like they still have that here, obviously, but it seems like they're adding a few things. But I just thought that was really cool because normally every time I've seen the D class depicted, it's just a person in an orange jumpsuit. So having it be like a literal walking body bag is actually kind of far more interesting.
Well, it also makes it easier from a practical standpoint, so that they don't have to render facial features, because it would be too expensive. But these are the kind of creative pieces of lore that you come up with if you actually have a creative bone in your body and you're faced with limitations.
Yeah.
Granted, you should be just as capable of being creative when you don't have limitations, but as we've seen, Hollywood recently, especially post CGI, has used the fact that they can render anything as an excuse to not have to give a damn when they're doing world building and shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, banana.
In that grand incineration, nearly 3 billion hunks of well done steak. We will all go together when we go. Every Hottentot and every Eskimo. When the air becomes uranium, we will all go simultaneous.
This song makes Tom Leonard's death even more sad, because he literally made a song about how we will all go together when we go, and he missed out. He missed out on the apocalypse that he predicted. Sorry, Tom.
This SCP-5K scratches a particular itch. Granted, I never get to play these kind of games. Horror action games. To be fair, horror action is a genre I think I kind of gel with a lot.
I hope that the SCP IP gets bought by someone with more resources at some point, so that we can get a story, or we can get a game that throws in some of the other factions too. Because for me, some of the best parts of the world building are the other groups of interest, like Marshall Carter and Dark and Dr. Wondertainment and so on.
Right. I mean, to be like I said again, the first part of this game had the UIU as main characters, then the GOC, and now they're just focused on the D class. So, SCP is
I hope
public domain.
at some point there will be games that don't focus so much on containment breaches. I know that's the obvious thing, and that's why everyone and their dog uses it when they do a SCP game or something. But
Okay, Don.
honestly, I want to see a game or a movie that treats the SCP Foundation almost like the BTRD from Hellboy, and we get to see like the average like day-to-day goings on. Maybe with some of the more benign SCPs too, like 999 and
Uh,
the
no,
iPod and so on.
no, Giant Troll. The SCP Foundation is the enemy in this. GOC actually, you got to play as a GOC in the last update, Ghost of the South Gate, which took place in Antarctica and was revolved around keeping. It was kind of inspired by The Thing, like John Carpenter's The Thing, which was revolving around the testing. Like SCP was testing the flesh that hates.
Mm.
Again, if you guys wanted to look up some or are interested in like some videos talking about it or something, I can find some for you if you want. Actually, there is some good videos out there. But yeah, no, this scratches a certain itch for me for like horror action, mainly because I just think it's a really interesting thing where like you think, because oftentimes when there's like horror, like a horror movie, no, it's the Foundation. Yeah, it's the enemy. They're the enemy. They're trying to kill all of humanity and stuff. It's a whole, like I said, it's supposed to be based off SCP-5000, like that whole story there.
It's one of the storylines where the Foundation gets infected by one of the anomalies and basically goes rogue and tries to kill all of humanity.
Yeah.
It's like that one storyline. It's like that one alternate universe where there's the like Cognito hazard where it actually makes people side with 682, for example. I forget the name. I forget the name of that particular alternate universe. But
yeah, no, I agree. I agree. Giant Turtle. Horror action is completely underutilized. Like some really cool games in recent years are like kind of horror action, like Control. Its spin-off FBC Firebreak. There's an indie game that's really cool that has like the supernatural. It's cool. Like again, I can find videos and like post them in the Discord if anyone's interested. Called Trepang 2. It's basically like it's a kind of a spiritual successor to the Fear games, if anyone knows what those are. But yeah, like it's a severely underutilized genre because more often than not, you think regular people would. I mean, yes, most of the time it would make more sense to run the fuck away from all the scary bullshit that horror entails. But if you have someone that is capable of fighting back, shouldn't they not be able to fight back? Like movie I can think of horror action wise, one that specifically comes to mind is Dog Soldiers from early 2000s, like British SAS unit.
Oh right, I remember that one. Yeah.
Funny enough, I think it has the actor who played Alfred in Gotham in it.
Neat.
Yeah.
It's a small world after all.
And that's why like I kind of do gravitate towards like NTF stuff for SCP or like special operate like if I ever think of like a story that involves like that kind of stuff, like even like the stuff we're working on, right? I often like gravitate towards like the like special forces unit that specialize in fighting like supernatural or paranormal shit, just because I think that's so interesting.
I end up gravitating towards well, obviously the magic users because duh, but also I think my favorite faction is Morph Carter and Dark, just because I feel like I feel like the version of me in the SCP universe would probably start somewhere like the Gamers Against Weed or the Serpent's Hand, and then wind up working for Marshall Carter and Dark eventually.
Yeah. All right. Banana.
Banana.
Yes, we all will go together when we all go together. Yes, we all will go together when we.
I'm so glad that Tom Leonard's popularity is making a comeback.
Oh, it already came out. Okay. August 20th.
Which means that it should be playable somewhere, which is cool.
I think it's online. You know, like you get it from Steam or something. Like computer wise. I don't really play PC.
Likely.
All right. Banana.
Banana.
Okay. Traumatized D class in a fetal position on the floor. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the level of thankless job is quite severe for the D class guys.
I don't think it would have been purged. Dragon Turtle.
Oh,
he said.
let me look at what he said.
When I said like it should be on like Steam, like on the computer or something, he says hopefully it wasn't purged recently.
Yeah, thanks to all the collective shout nonsense. I don't think it would be, but you never know.
Something
But,
was raised yesterday, so technically a child. What? I don't know. But yeah, we should have some stuff ready for next week as well. I guess with that, folks,
yeah.
I want to say goodbye.
Outros because I have to use the restroom soon.
With that, folks, I want to say goodbye. Adios, aloha, avidazai, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
Shalom and fuck off.